Hello, and welcome back to the Triangle Business Podcast. I'm your host, Joey Natale, followed by,
I'm Scott Moore.
hey y'all. So today we're going to be talking about sales, and we are going to be, what was that sexy title you came up with? Like
How to be successful at sales 100% of the time.
how to be successful at sales 100% of the time. So this is a topic we've been talking about before we got on. And yeah, Scott, do you have anything you want to kick it off with that comes to mind about this? If not, I
Well,
can
I mean,
throw
I think we
questions.
have to
Yeah.
start from the definition of what
Okay.
is a successful sales meeting.
Okay. Yeah. Most people believe that a successful sales meeting is getting to a yes. And hence the title we've chosen, like, how do you get to a successful sales meeting 100% of the time? Well, we disagree with that.
Yeah.
Not always about getting it to 100% yes, because that is damn near impossible.
Well, like, never mind possible. It's not even desirable.
Right.
Like if 100% of the people you meet with are like a yes to you, then your price is drastically too low, I would submit. Or you're being super indiscriminate about who you work with. And I can't imagine a scenario where everybody I meet is somebody that I want to work with.
Yes.
Um, I mean, I like most people. I'm very fortunate. I like most people, but I don't like everybody. I don't vibe with everybody. And um, I wouldn't like, there's no space in my practice to work with everybody. If I had set my prices low enough to get a yes from everybody, then I'm filling up my time with a bunch of stuff that's not producing a lot of money.
Mm,
That's not sustainable. So, yeah, I mean, my definition of a successful sales meeting is a meeting where we determine whether or not we're going to work together. So, a yes or a no.
yes.
And the only unsuccessful sales meeting is one where we don't get to an answer. So, a maybe. And it has been my experience that we do not know what to do with a maybe.
Oh, maybe it's not fun, especially when it comes to dating. Just like, I think it's very related to like you
Yeah.
ask someone out, a person, and they're like, maybe. What? I didn't feel good. Feels
Yeah.
like an automatic no, but it's, I don't know,
Right.
right? Same thing in sales, by the
I
way.
mean, if somebody says, I'm not sure, first of all, I will take it on myself. I'll say when somebody tells me they're not sure, it suggests to me that there's information they need that I've not provided. So what questions do you have that we haven't talked about already so that I can help you get to an answer?
Right.
Sometimes they say, I need to talk to my spouse or my business partner about whether we do this.
Yes.
And I I say that's a good idea. Like, because it is.
Yeah.
Um, if you're
It
making
is.
if you have a business partner and you're making business decisions without that business partner, there either better be a real clear delineation of responsibilities or you're doing it wrong.
Yes.
If you're making decisions about working with somebody spending a substantial amount of money and you haven't talked to your spouse about it, like, look, we're business coaches. And so there are levels at which we're making business decisions that have nothing to do, like our spouse's opinion is not necessary because we have a budget for that.
Right.
But sometimes the spouse is integrated into the business, or sometimes they just need to take their most trusted person in the world and bounce the idea off of them.
Yes.
But in either case, when they say that, I say, that's a good idea. When are you going to have that conversation? So I know when to follow up with you.
Yes. Yeah.
And if they're like, I'm not sure, then I'll say, okay, well, what I'm going to do is a week from now, I'm going to contact you to find out if you've had that conversation.
Yeah.
And if they're like, if they seem wishy-washy about it, then I say, listen, this is what it's going to be like to work with me. I'm in the business of helping my clients get things done. And if you aren't able to schedule a meeting with your spouse or your business partner within a week, I would I mean, like if they're out of town, okay, fine. But like other than that, some other extenuating circumstance, like then your business is not set up properly if you can't get that meeting within a week.
Mm,
If you're not able to move through decisions like this with some degree of haste, then you're missing out on the only advantage that small business has, which is speed of execution.
yes, absolutely.
So, and if they're like I've had people be like, whoa, like, I appreciate you pressing me on that. I'll have that conversation tonight and I will let you know tomorrow. And if they
Yeah.
say that, more often than not, I get a yes. Um, and sometimes I follow up with them a week later and they're like, yeah, we haven't had a chance to talk about it. And I'll say, I will follow up with you one more time next week. If you do not have an answer by then, we're not suited to work together.
Yes.
Because if you can't move on this within 2 weeks, then I don't think I can help you.
Right.
And I've had occasional yeses at that point, but more often than not, at that point, it's a no. But like, I am going to get to a yes or a no within 2 weeks because that is all of the mental space I'm willing to give a sales call.
Yeah, I agree.
And so I
Beautiful.
win every time.
And for those who, unless I don't think we said it, is that 50% marker. If you're getting 90, 80% yeses, or like going back to the 100% yeses, your prices are probably too low. Vice versa. If you're getting significantly below 50% yeses, your prices are either too high or, as you said, you haven't articulated the value of your offer or your services very well.
Right.
And so, here's a fun question I think is relevant to this topic that is important to people is do you believe sales is manipulation, influence, service, or education?
Manipulation. Wait, what were the options?
Is manipulation, influence, service, or education?
I would say some combination of education and service.
I would agree.
Like explaining how I work with people, understanding what's going on in somebody's business.
Yeah.
So I can, whenever I'm having a sales call, I'm interviewing them to be my client as much as they are interviewing me to be their coach. And for me to be a yes, I need to satisfy two things. Number one, I believe I can help them.
Yes.
Like the issues they're having are ones that I have some familiarity with. Um, and also that like if they're like, I have to raise $100,000 by the end of the month or else we're going out of business. And I'm going to ask some questions about that, like how much do you already have and what is,
Yeah.
if I think like, no, the plane is going to crash, it may be that I think like I can't help them.
Right.
And also I'm determined, like, do I want to spend a whole lot of time and emotion with this person?
Right.
Like I said before, I'm lucky. I like most people,
Yes.
but sometimes I've run into a person I'm like, nope.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll still try to help them find a great coach because I think they deserve that. Um, but yeah, anyway, I always view it as like I'm just here to answer your questions and help you understand what I do and to in as many ways as possible, just treat you like you're already my client.
Yes. I I'll answer. The same question is
Yeah, please.
I would say it's influence, service, and education. So like I like to bring a distinction here. This isn't the only definition, in my personal opinion, but I think is an interesting one. The difference between manipulation and influence.
Okay.
So, the difference that manipulation is essentially getting somebody to do something that you want. Influence is like helping them figure out what they want. What's
Yeah.
interesting is they're both done the exact same way. One could say it's the intention, but like I think it's a little more than just the intention. Um, an interesting example that isn't always popular for some people is if a parent tries to tell their kids, young kids, don't do drugs, according to this definition, that would be manipulation because they have no idea or reference point if they want to or not.
Hmm.
I would agree that's a good move. Right? But like this is an example of like sometimes they have no idea. And so there's always this fine line. This is a philosophical conversation at this point. There's a fine line of balancing, making sure you're being integrity of influencing someone. But like I think that's where it comes in a lot of ways. But hence what in the sales call, what makes it lean toward more influence is the service, is
Yeah.
the education. Like one of the leadership trainings that me and Scott went through is I really like using the word enrolling
Mhm.
versus sales in a lot of ways. I
Sure.
think it paints a different picture. And I think it more accurately depicts what sales is in the healthier context. Um, and so like, education's the teaching part, but like serving others, like helping them make a decision, which essentially is what coaches do, take action, inform them enough to make a decision. Sales calls are literally us coaching. It begins there, probably before then.
Well,
But
yeah, I mean, yes, yes and no. One of the things I think is really important is I never have a sales conversation where both parties have not said the words like, I understand this is a sales conversation,
yes, yeah.
because it makes it really distinct
Hmm.
from, I'll get people, tell me a little bit about what you do. This blah, blah, blah. Scott says things and about what it's like being a business coach. If they're like, what does it cost to work with you? I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm not sliding down the slippery slope. I like, do you want to have a sales conversation? And if they're like, I'm just curious about what your price range is. I'm like, well, I don't know anything about your business and we haven't discussed some really key information that would help me understand where you are and what I would charge to work with you. Do you want to have that conversation? And they're like, yeah, let's do it. I'm like, okay, well, let me look at my calendar and see when we could do it. And they'll be like, why can't we just talk about it right now? Like, I don't, because I'm at a party, because I'm on vacation, because I'm like, I treat it as like its own thing.
Mhm.
I'm not having a sales conversation that I have not prepared myself for. Like, I might do a little research about whatever, about their company. I'm not going to do a ton of research. I'm not that high a fact finder, but I'm like, I
Yeah.
might look up their web page. I might look at their Google page and see like, do they have what do their reviews look like, right?
Yeah.
Um, but when I start a sales conversation with somebody, I'm like, you get that this is a sales conversation, right? And they're like, yes, great. This is a sales conversation. What that means to me is that it will be a successful sales conversation if at the end of this conversation, we determine whether we're going to work together.
Mhm.
And then when I go to close at the end and I say, so what'll it be? They're not surprised or awkward. That's the thing I think that a lot of people, I mean, I've been on the receiving end of a sales conversation I didn't know was a sales conversation. And when they're like, so do you want to work with me? I'm like, oh, I didn't know that's what we were talking about.
Mhm.
I thought you were just telling me a little bit about your business. But yeah, I wasn't prepared to answer that question.
Here's a question for you on that topic. So, you ever been on you go into the intention of like a one-on-one with somebody, like, oh, let's grab coffee, I hear about your business, what you're up to. And then they are interested in your, like, it is just you and either virtually or in person, just you two, not at a party, not on vacation. They're like, oh, I think I'm interested in your services. Halfway through, let's say an hour meeting, it's like 30 minutes through, or you get 20 minutes left. Do you still, even then, be like, great, let's schedule that time? Versus
If
like,
they sit there, they're like, they've learned a little bit about me and they're like, I'm interested in hiring you.
yeah,
I'll say, I would absolutely say, let's schedule a time to talk about it
mhm,
because I'm still going to have more questions for them. Like, I don't have a set fee, like a one size fits all fee.
right,
I need to learn some idea of the complexity of the business.
mhm,
How many employees does it have? Because I'm going to want to get to know as many of their employees as possible and probably schedule extra meetings with those people and be tracking how they're functioning in the business. I may be needing to get involved in their hiring processes. All those things influence like what I think is a fair price to work with them.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, I've had people like say, I've heard about you. I need to hire you. I'm not like, great, here's my, scan this QR code to send me money. I'm like, let's set up a time to talk about it.
cool.
Um, I mean, to me, also, I track like what my success rate is on
Mhm,
sales.
mhm.
And it would, I'm more likely to fail to track it if I end up in these casual conversations. If I'm like, nope, that's a sales meeting.
Yes,
So,
yeah,
I like, do you think that people get hung up that on the idea that they're a failure if they don't get a yes?
yes, absolutely. I was actually one of the questions I was going to ask is like, how does fear of rejection affect pricing decisions in a lot of ways? Um, I've personal example I've had in the past where like, oh man, maybe I asked for too much and they said no. Vice versa, I've had like I had somebody who hired me last year. I quoted them a price. They're like, "Oh, is that it?" I'm like, "Ah." Like, darn. And I lowered it a little bit and kind of feared that. I'm like, "Wow, I could have not shot for the moon per se, but like I could have asked probably the rate I really feel comfortable with." Um, what was the question again? I forgot.
I mean, I
Sorry.
guess I don't remember how I asked it, but like, I think people attach success or failure to whether or not they get a yes.
Yes. Yeah, that's what you asked. Yeah, I would agree that they do. And I think that's because of the society we live in, like failure equals you are a failure identity wise, or make up meaning in stories about why I or am not good enough, didn't do a good enough job. Like a lot of that. I think what I've noticed in my own practice, what really hits home is that like I'm a solopreneur. It's just me. And so like it's an easy trap to fall into to feel like, oh, they're rejecting me.
Yeah. So I have a real specific opinion about that. People in the service industry, where what you're really doing is you're saying, I will help you do a thing. I will be your coach. I will be your therapist. I will be your attorney, maybe.
Mhm, mhm.
Like you're selling your own service to them. I believe that most people cannot tolerate a lot more no's than yeses because every rejection is a rejection of you.
Yeah.
If you sell a product or something, it could still be a service, but it could be a service that's a lot more commoditized. Um, Something where you don't really have a lot of personal contact with them. I don't know. The example that's coming to mind is maybe like pressure washing.
Sure.
Like while somebody's pressure washing, they're not really interacting with the client. They're just interacting with the pressure washer and the house or the building.
Or selling widgets. I think
Yeah,
that.
but either way, like they're they're being judged on did the product perform or did the pressure washing look good? But they probably don't think of it as like if somebody said no to them, that like it's a judgment about them as a human being.
Mhm.
I think if you're a coach, it's real easy to imagine that when every time somebody says no to you, they're just saying, I don't think you're a good coach.
That's a good point. And like, I agree with you. It's just like, I've heard it explained like, there's you and then the person. And if you don't remind yourself, but actually, there's a third layer, the service in between you and they're rejecting, I'm going to say visually here, they're rejecting the service, not you, versus just you directly. I don't know if that visual made sense for people looking at it, but like it's kind of like there's like a wall, if you will, to protect you. I've heard you say that before. One time you gave me the advice of just like, Joey, I don't think your ego can handle you getting what, like a name of like hundreds of people and calling a bunch of people
Yeah,
cold calling a
like
day.
cold calling.
Yeah. I
I mean, the percentage on cold calling is like typically 2%, 2 or
yeah,
3%.
like it makes me think of this guy I was telling you about, that book called Alex Ramosi. I like some of his stuff. I don't, this is not an endorsement of him and his products, to be clear. I think he's got some interesting stuff. We'll leave it there. I heard him say one time, like, if you got zero money, and he was in the gym business, that's what he started. If you want to start a gym, it's easy. Just call 100 people a day. That's all you got to do.
Mm.
You'll get there. I'm like, correct. You will. And it made me think about what you said. I'm like, and this is, I think is a more deeper conversation. Like, I do believe that there are some people who can handle that, or they learn to build that resilience is a better word, to like learn how to get rejection. I mean, there's a book on it called Rejection Proof. Like, the more you do it, the better you get at it, like professional salespeople.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a goal that everybody should strive to have.
Well, I was at a work conference one time. One of my mentors was hosting, and
Mhm.
he asked he's like, who in the room is in sales? Everybody raised their hand. There's 70 people in the room. Everybody raised their hand. And he's like, keep your hand in the air if you have had professional sales training. And I'd say 60% of the people's hands went down. There was like probably 25 or 30 hands still left up. He said, by professional sales training, I mean you have spent a minimum of 80 hours receiving professional sales training about how to move through a prospect list. And like everybody but two people put their hands down. And he's like, you guys are not professionally trained salespeople. And pretending like you're going to be able to operate like professionally trained salespeople is just you fooling yourselves and putting a barrier in the way of your business working. And I've remembered that ever since because that's one of the bases on which I say you can't get way less than 50%. I know professional salespeople. A very good friend of mine is a professional salesperson. That guy does not give a shit what you say. I mean, like he like calls you up. He goes, "Here's what we're doing. This is the product we have. Are you interested?" And they'll be like, "No." And he's like, "Okay, thank you for your time." Hang up, calls the next one. And he has prospect lists, but what he's selling is if he gets a yes, it is tens of millions of dollars worth of sales. And so he's like, of course I just keep going through the list because every no I get is one call closer to me finding the person who says yes
Mhm.
and going cha-ching.
Yeah.
But like it takes a real thick skin to do that. And if
Yeah.
you're like, you know, I I would be concerned that if you're like, I'm Joey Natale, I'm a business coach. Were you interested in working with me? No? Okay, bye. Like after the 60th call like that, and you still don't have anybody saying yes, like what are you starting to think about yourself and about your expertise
Yeah.
when you got 60 no's in a row?
Yeah, and I wonder about that because that brings up a good point of like what you're selling. Is it more commoditized versus like, to me, coaching, um, some more than others, I think, are more relationship based. So it's a little more involved, like you said, versus like selling widgets kind of thing. I mean, I know that there are coaches out there who cold call and they're successful at it. I would argue maybe more so in the selling certification of coaching, maybe more so, but like that's nothing. I don't want to get into that. But yeah, I feel like that doesn't can work, but doesn't easily work in the
Yeah.
field we are.
The I think here's the thing though.
Yeah.
You need a volume of sales that is functional for your business. Like end of sentence.
Yes.
For somebody who has a practice, that volume is probably not that huge, but that can be a problem all on its own
Mhm.
because we were just talking before we got on the call about like if it's a coin flip, right? Like if literally you told me that every client, every sales call for a prospective client, I'm going to flip a coin and on, heads I get a yes and tails I get a no. That's fine. Like that's for me, that's kind of what I'm going for is that about 50-50. It means my price range is calibrated properly.
Hmm.
But in a real small sample size, like it would be very easy for you to flip a coin 4 times and get 4 tails.
Yes.
You know, like and the coin has no memory.
Right.
And that is a good analogy because the next client doesn't know what the last client says. The next client doesn't think like, or the next prospect doesn't think Scott's due for a win, you know.
Yeah, the gambler's
Um,
fallacy.
and again, like Scott doesn't even think it's a win if they say yes. Scott just thinks it's a win if he gets an answer, yes or
Right.
no. Um, and like disciplining myself to that, by the way, took years
Mm.
of like every time I would say, have I answered all of your questions? And they're like, yes. I say, well, then this is the part of the call where I'm asking you, do you want to move forward or not? And when that word not comes out of my mouth, I go ding, ding, ding. That was a successful sales call.
Yeah.
Because like, uh, as long as the next thing they say is yes or no, or some version of yes or no.
Right.
If they get to a maybe, I'm like, wait, we're not there yet. I have to go through a couple more steps to get them off the maybe.
Yeah.
But like if you are only having 6 sales calls a year,
Hmm.
it's like if your business is pretty full and there's only a few slots in your schedule that you're trying to fill, and you're only doing 6 sales calls a year for you know ongoing clients, it would be real easy to get 5 no's and 1 yes.
Hmm.
It would be real easy to get 5 yeses and 1 no. Like it's just a small number
Right.
of shots. It's not a lot of data.
Hmm.
And so having I'm gonna have to name drop here for a second. Like um my mentor Bill Davis would
Hmm.
always say the single determinant uh between a business that's going to succeed and a business that's going to fail is always a continuous pipeline of sales opportunities.
Mm.
If you have a continuous pipeline of sales opportunities, you can adjust.
Yes.
You can be like, you know, in the last 2 months, not one person has said, yes, I'm going to try lowering my prices by 10% and see what happens. I'm going to try saying it different when I talk about how I create value. I'm going to try, to have shorter sales calls or longer sales calls or something. I'm going to change something. But if you always have another prospect to kind of experiment with,
Hmm.
then you'll adjust your sales process and get it something close to right. And then, have a chance to experiment. So I, it's like this saying, like, quantity has a quality all its own.
Yes,
I don't know if you ever
that's
heard
true.
that. It's kind of like, you can go to like a mediocre buffet, but there's plenty of it. Um,
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
I've seen you eat too, so
Oh yeah.
the point
Big on
stands.
tip.
But yeah, like I'm just saying that you do need to have a significant volume of prospects to work with, or else it's going to be really easy for either you get too many yeses, and that sounds like a good problem to have. It's still a problem. Like
Mm.
you've overloaded your schedule, or you're not getting any yeses, and now the machine doesn't have enough clients feeding it. So
Yes, that's true. Um, I do want to share one thing. I think a helpful tool for people.
yes,
I talked about this
please.
earlier about pricing. I was reading an article on this, and like there are some other things that might be helpful to give context around this, like when is a good time, and it may be if you're at a fuller book of business, middle book of business. Those are all conversations we can have another time. But I've asked this question before: is like, what should I raise my prices to? And I always say that's a really good question. And I'll never forget this article, which was like titled like "Find Your Happy Price," and it's been a very good metric for me. And I'd like to share it here, where I ask people like, what would feel like an outrageous amount of money to ask for? Something that feels like, ooh, could I ask for that?
The
It may
declaration number.
a couple of numbers, feelings might come up like, ooh, do I feel good enough? Do I have deliver enough value? Like find that number and then lower it. Because the question you really want to ask is like, what would be a price to be like, oh my God, I'd love to be paid that price. Sometimes it might be outrageous. So the ceiling is, ooh, I don't think I can ask for that, but I'd love to be paid that. Cool. Lower that. Wow. Let's just use a random number. Let's say $100 to make it easier. Like, wow, could I really ask $100 an hour for that? Like, wow, that's a little much, but God, I'd love to be paid that. I'm like, cool. How does 90 feel? Ooh, that still feels a lot. Like, I don't think I could do that. Cool. How about 80? Feel like, yeah, I think I could do 80. This is important, not because you're diminishing your value, but because like if you ask for a price on a sales call and you don't feel confident you can do that, they will know. They don't know that they will know, but unconsciously they will tell because
Yeah.
you don't feel confident in it. And if you don't feel congruent, you are breaking trust or it's shaky at best, shaky bridge. So articulating that, be like, it'll be $80 an hour versus five, like, in the worst case scenario, it'll be 90, maybe. You know what I mean? Like you don't want that kind of energy at all. So like,
I
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
No, that was what I was gonna say. Yeah.
Well, a book I recommend frequently is The Firestarter Sessions by Danielle Laporte. Um, and she has a chapter in there, and I'm not going to remember the name exactly, but I know her analogy is like you got to be comfortable in your money shoes. And her comparison is like if you have a pair of like $400 shoes and you're like, this is my most expensive pair of shoes, and I don't even want to wear them because I'm so worried that they might get scuffed or whatever, then you're not comfortable in those shoes. If you have a pair of $200 shoes that you're like, I paid a lot of money for these, they're very comfortable, I enjoy wearing them, they're going to get a little bit of wear and tear on them, but that's just part of life. Then $200 is your comfort level on the shoes. And I agree with you completely. Like you have to have a number that you can say with a certain confidence that you're like, that's my fee. That's what I charge. That's what this costs.
Yes.
Um, and not be weird about it,
Yes.
because I think that, yeah, like I say this all the time, most people are not very good actors. And
No.
so if you feel weird about it, they can tell. And if you don't feel weird about it, they can tell that too.
Yep. That's very true. Um, cool. Well, I think we're gonna wrap up this episode here. I
Yeah,
think
it's been a
this is
lot of
definitely
fun.
something we could talk about more and expanding on because I like those analogies, but what we talked about earlier in the episode, I think could like the 50%. Like you may be comfortable asking for, let's use the analogy of $1,000 an hour, a month, whatever. But like, if everybody is telling you no, is it the price? I don't know. Something to explore.
Then try something different.
Try something different. Yeah, absolutely. So
But yeah, if it's 6 months or 2 months even between every sales call, it's hard to iterate on something that happens very seldom.
that
So
is also true. Cool.
yeah, this has been fun. I mean, it's one of the keys of like sales is necessary part of every business, and it is one of the roles that almost every business owner holds on to for longer
Yeah,
than anything else. So expect us to talk about this on the regular.
we will be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you all for listening. If you
Yeah.
like what you're hearing, give us a follow, subscribe, give us a comment, and reach out. We'd love to have guests and support and give a spotlight on your small business. It doesn't have to be in the triangle, but we do love supporting local as well. Anyway, thank you all and see you next time.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.